Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. And welcome back, everyone. This next segment is from Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, making a virtual announcement that the federal government is committing $10 million to recruit and train up to 2,000 energy auditors as it launches the Canada Greener Homes Grant in the coming weeks. Up to $5,000 will be provided in grants to help retrofit 700,000 homes. The Prime Minister has joined the Natural Resource Minister, Seamus O'Regan, and Employment Minister Carla Qualtrough. Following the announcement, the ministers O'Regan and Qualtrough will respond to questions from other reporters concerning Major-General Dany Fortin's departure as head of Canada's vaccine rollout amid military investigation into sexual misconduct allegations. The sexual misconduct investigation was announced late last week, and from there, the Major General was pulled from his service of trafficking and bringing in vaccine into Canada, and is an interesting move to see how this actually works out, because it was key in overlooking to making sure that the vaccines were coming into the country and in making sure that they were getting to where they needed to get to within the provinces. And now somebody else has to actually step up and take that role and ensure that the job gets done in a timely manner, the same as Major General Dany Fortin was actually doing. So we'll have to keep an eye on that also with the trafficking of vaccines for different province vaccination programs. So let's listen to what Prime Minister Trudeau and the ministers actually have to say in this press conference.
Consulting Energy Advisors, and to Corey Diamond from Efficiency Canada for joining us today. In the coming weeks, we'll be launching a new program, the Greener Homes Grant, to help retrofit up to 700,000 homes. This investment will provide energy audits as well as grants of up to $5,000 for homeowners so that they can make energy efficient improvements. If you're a homeowner, this will make your life more affordable and lower your energy bills, all while fighting climate change and creating good middle-class jobs. To make these renovations happen, we need workers who can install windows, heating and cooling experts, electricians, and insulation specialists. But before any of that work gets going on your house, you need an energy advisor who can tell you where you're losing heat in the winter or why your house is getting too hot in the summer, so you can plan what makes the most sense to invest in. We know that there's going to be a bigger demand for energy advisors now and in the coming years as more and more people retrofit their homes. And we have to make sure homeowners have access to energy evaluations everywhere in Canada. Today, we're announcing a $10 million commitment to recruit, train, and mentor up to 2,000 new energy advisors right across the country. Whether for people who already work in construction or in a whole range of other fields, this training program will open up new opportunities for people across the country. These are good, well-paying jobs. Everyone should have a chance to benefit from this great career choice. That's why we will actively recruit people from all walks of life to join the growing energy efficiency sector. Par le biais de l'initiative Maison plus écologique, on va investir 10 millions de dollars pour créer 2000 bons emplois de conseillers en efficacité énergétique partout au pays. Ces nouveaux conseillers vont faire en sorte que les propriétaires de maisons, peu importe où ils vivent, auront un meilleur accès à des conseils ciblés et à des évaluations énerguides. Bien sûr, cette initiative va aussi aider à créer d'autres bons emplois pour la classe moyenne en encourageant le secteur de l'efficacité énergétique et de la construction, en plus d'avoir des effets positifs tout au long de nos chaînes d'approvisionnement. Ministers O'Regan and Qualtrough will have more details to share in just a few moments, but the bottom line is this. Creating green jobs is not only good for the economy, for workers, and for the environment. It makes life more affordable for the middle class, too. After all, anyone with a home knows that leaky windows or an old furnace don't just waste power, they waste money, too. By putting those retrofits in reach for homeowners, we're going to help people cut their energy bills while also cutting extra emissions. Les bâtiments au Canada, incluant nos maisons, comptent pour 18% de nos émissions de gaz à effet de serre. C'est pourquoi il est important de travailler à rendre nos maisons plus éco-énergétiques. En plus de rendre nos chez-soi plus confortables et leur entretien plus abordable, ces mesures vont nous aider à atteindre notre objectif de carboneutralité d'ici 2050. Climate change is real, and it's an existential threat. That's why we're continuing to strengthen our climate plan with smart, targeted investments. We have a plan to rebuild a more resilient economy and a more sustainable future for all Canadians. Because that's what Building Back Better is all about. Real solutions that work for real people. A healthier future, good jobs, and a stronger, cleaner economy. That's what we're going to keep delivering for Canadians. Thank you. Je suis maintenant heureux de céder la parole à Cindy Garreau.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister, for joining us today. Excuse me. And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for this virtual clean energy funding announcement that you'll learn more about in a few minutes. My name is Cindy Garreau, and I'm the Executive Director of CASE, the Canadian Association of Consulting Energy Advisors, which focuses on the sustainable and credible profession of energy advisors across Canada by providing knowledge and information, a supportive network, and a unified voice. I'm pleased to be your MC today. I'm coming to you live from Toronto, and I'm joined today by the Honourable Seamus O'Regan Jr., Minister of Natural Resources, the Honourable Carla Qualtrough, Minister of Employment, Workforce Development, and Disability Inclusion, along with Corey Diamond, Executive Director for Efficiency Canada. Before we begin, I'd like to just establish a few housekeeping items. For the speakers participating in today's event, please keep your microphones on mute. When you're not speaking, please unmute yourself when it's your turn to speak. There'll be a media availability at the end of this event where media will be phoning in. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, the Honourable Seamus O'Regan Jr., Minister of Natural Resources Canada.
All right. I think I've managed to unmute myself. Cindy, thank you very much. I am proud to join the Prime Minister and Minister Qualtrough today for this announcement. $10 million to recruit and train up to 2,000 energy advisors from right across Canada. In 2018, the energy efficiency sector accounted for 436 direct jobs, and it's only expected to grow. This investment will serve as a stimulus as we rebuild after post-COVID-19 recovery. We'll be emphasizing skills training and job creation for underrepresented groups in our workforce, in particular, including women, Indigenous peoples, persons with disabilities, racialized Canadians, and the LGBTQ community. And the last group is particularly meaningful today, the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biophobia. By focusing on all of these underrepresented groups, we will not only build a greener and more prosperous Canada, but a more inclusive one. The call for proposals is now open. I encourage all eligible organizations to apply. We need your help to recruit, train, and mentor guide energy advisors, and we need the help right across the country. Because climate change is measured globally, but it's felt locally. I mentioned to you that I'm joining you from the island of Newfoundland. I actually grew up in Labrador. This past winter was a scary one in Labrador. It was a winter unlike any that people here can remember. In Inuit and Innu communities just 200 kilometers from where I grew up, people are experiencing things that their elders never did. Average temperatures 10 degrees higher than normal in the height of winter. Ice coverage melting faster than in any other part of the country. The Arctic's warming twice as fast as the rest of the planet. Northern Nunavut in Labrador is losing its ice coverage faster than anywhere in the Canadian Arctic. It's not only alarming, it's dangerous, especially for Inuit communities that have depended on thick ice to move around, to hunt, to fish, to travel from community to community. In some places where the spring ice would normally be a meter thick, this year it's not even a foot thick. Barely thick enough to support a snowmobile, making travel between some of these communities potentially fatal. Climate change is threatening the very survival of our communities right now, which means the need to act didn't end when this global pandemic began, and the urgency will only intensify when we finally get COVID-19 in our rearview mirror. And that is exactly what our government is doing. We strengthened our climate plan with $15 billion in new spending. Then we doubled down in Budget 2021, and we've done it all with a major focus on energy efficiency, because energy efficiency is our hidden fuel. According to the International Energy Agency, energy efficiency measures alone could get us a long way towards our ambitious new climate goals for 2030. It's how we get to net zero emissions by 2050. Our houses are a great place to start. Buildings and the energy required to heat and cool them, that accounts for 18% of Canada's emissions. By making a few important changes to our homes, we can significantly reduce emissions. We can save money on our utility bills too, and make our homes more comfortable to live in. So that's what we're doing. We're working with the provinces and the territories to develop Build Smart, which is a strategy to make our buildings more comfortable and energy efficient through measures like better building codes. And we've committed $2.6 billion to provide as many as 700,000 grants of up to $5,000 to help owners make energy efficient improvements to their homes, supported by an at-home EnerGuide evaluation. Climate action means jobs. The Prime Minister's been saying it for a long time. And with today's investment, it means energy advisors who will work with homeowners, who will assess their needs and recommend actions. They are the experts who will inspect your home, measure its efficiency, and advise on how to improve its performance. They'll find the drafty windows, the poorly insulated attics, and inefficient heating equipment, and they'll help the homeowner fix it. They are the ones who will help Canada achieve our common mission: net zero emissions by 2050, a prosperous economy that continues to create jobs, and a low-carbon future that leaves no one behind. That's what we're doing here today. Thank you, Cindy. Back to you.
Thank you, Minister O'Regan. So I'd now like to invite the Honourable Carla Qualtrough, Minister of Employment, Workforce Development and Disability Inclusion. Minister Qualtrough?
Well, hi everyone, and thanks Cindy for the introduction. I'm joining you today from the traditional territory of the Tsawwassen and Musqueam First Nations here in Delta, British Columbia. This really is a coast-to-coast event. C'est une grande honneur de me joindre virtuellement au Premier ministre et à mon collègue, le ministre Seamus O'Regan, pour cette annonce. As they have both said, today is about jobs. It's also about fighting climate change. It's about building a greener economy, which also means building and supporting a workforce to help us get there. Alors que nous poursuivons nos efforts de lutte contre la COVID-19, nous avons un plan solide pour notre relance économique. Nous sommes déjà en bonne voie de créer 1 million d'emplois d'ici la fin de l'année, ce qui nous ramènera au niveau d'emploi d'avant la pandémie. Budget 2021 outlined our plan to create almost 500,000 new job and training opportunities for workers over the coming years. This will strengthen workers' futures by ensuring they have the skills they need for the changing nature of work. And while the pandemic has impacted all Canadians, it has not done so equally. There's been a disproportionate impact on those already in precarious work, including women, persons with disabilities, youth, and visible minorities. That's why we're focused on creating opportunities for people who experience barriers entering the workforce. Budget 2021 comes at a time when we're so close to seeing that bright, shiny light at the end of the tunnel. It's a strong plan for building a healthier, more resilient, and more inclusive Canada. Today's announcement is part of our recovery plan as we emerge from the pandemic. We're helping Canadians have greener homes and providing workers with the skills training they need to get good quality jobs while building the much needed capacity in this emerging sector. As already said, this investment of $10 million will create up to 2,000 new energy advisor jobs across the country in a sector that already accounts for close to 500,000 direct jobs. Right now, women currently account for only 15% of all energy advisors across the country, and we want to change that. As mentioned, our plan ensures an inclusive economic recovery and leaves no one behind. That's why the call for proposals underscores the need for diversity and inclusion by specifically targeting underrepresented groups such as women, persons with disabilities, Indigenous people, LGBTQ2 communities, and racialized Canadians. La dernière année a été difficile pour nous tous. Toutefois, nous avons une occasion unique de rebâtir une économie qui sera plus solide, plus résiliente et plus inclusive. Une économie qui permettra à chacun de réaliser son plein potentiel afin de créer un marché de travail flexible et vigoureux. Let's take advantage of this exciting opportunity while we can and create a greener future for our country. Thank you again for having me today. Thanks. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Minister. So our next speaker is Corey Diamond, Executive Director of Efficiency Canada. Corey, over to you.
Thank you, Cindy, and thank you, Prime Minister Trudeau, Honourable Ministers O'Regan and Qualtrough for your great remarks, and thank you for all your service over the past 15 months, helping Canada wade through these unprecedented times. My name is Corey Diamond. I'm calling in from Toronto, and I'm the Executive Director of Efficiency Canada. We're the national voice for an energy-efficient economy. We're based at Carleton University, and we advocate for policies that will help Canada maximize the benefits of energy efficiency so that we all have a sustainable environment, a productive economy, and a just and equitable society. And that's why I'm thrilled to be part of this announcement. You know, I could spend my 3 minutes giving you stats that prove why energy efficiency policies and investment are the right path. I could tell you how it's impossible for Canada to meet its international climate commitments without reducing the amount of energy waste across the country, or about the hundreds of thousands of jobs that are created when we do this, or even the way it helps 22% of Canadians struggling to pay their energy bills every month. But instead, I'm going to tell you two stories. Stories that highlight how investments like the one announced today affect real people in communities across this country. Stories that show us that an investment in developing the green workforce are as important as investing in programs and policy implementation. Stories that show us the pure essence of what we call our human energy. The first story is about Shauna Henderson. Shauna is the founder and CEO of the training company Blue House Energy in Halifax, Nova Scotia. She's a veteran in the energy efficiency space, been in this industry since 1991. In 2001, as a single mother, she began training people in energy efficiency and related construction fields. She was driving herself and her kids around her home province, talking to anyone who would listen about the benefits of saving energy. She eventually decided to take her know-how online and launched Blue House Energy's education platform in 2012. She's now known across the country as an expert energy advisor, passing her knowledge down to the next generation of energy advisors with a staff of 9. My second story is about Jordan Burnoff, a member of Northern Saskatchewan's Black Lake First Nation who grew up in a Métis community. As senior advisor with Medicine Rope Strategies, she works with local governments and nonprofits to create more opportunities for Indigenous people. Jordan is one of 20 young leaders in the 2020 Catalyst program from Indigenous Clean Energy, a capacity building program for Indigenous individuals from communities and organizations across Canada. And currently, she's leading a project that will upgrade the energy efficiency performance of homes in Île-à-la-Crosse, her rural Saskatchewan community of about 1,300 people. And as she says, look, all of the local contractors that already exist in our community, we're going to train them first to do the audits, and then we'll go in and do the retrofit work. Shauna and Jordan are two examples of the thousands of people working in the energy efficiency sector. People who wake up every day with a purpose and passion to drive a positive impact in everything they do. People who represent not just the future of the Canadian workforce, but also the present. With a continued investment in developing the workforce required to retrofit every building in this country over the next 3 decades, we can bring thousands more people like Shauna and Jordan into the fold. We can inspire people to think of energy efficiency as a safe landing place, to pursue a purposeful and meaningful career. And we can begin the process of transforming our buildings into a major contributor of greenhouse gas emission reductions while creating hundreds of thousands of jobs and tackling the inequity that plagues many parts of this country. So the only thing left to do is, let's get on with it. Thank you.
Wow, thanks, Corey. That was great. I'd like to again extend a special thank you to you, Prime Minister Trudeau, for your attendance today, and to Ministers O'Regan and Qualtrough, and of course you, Corey Diamond, for joining us today. So we'll now move on to some questions and answers from the media. And please welcome Ian Cameron, Press Secretary, for the media availability portion. Ian?
Good afternoon and good morning, everybody. My name is Ian Cameron, Senior Communications Advisor to Minister Seamus O'Regan. Can everybody hear me okay? Excellent. We're going to go into some questions and answers here. I know we have some media who's on the line. So just after this little spiel here, I'm going to pass it off to the operator, and we're going to take questions from the media. We're going to go with one question and one follow-up, and feel free to ask questions to any of our speakers here today. Donc, bonjour tout le monde, je m'appelle Ian Cameron, je suis le conseiller principal en communication pour le ministre O'Regan. On va passer maintenant à une session de questions-réponses médiatiques. Sentez-vous à l'aise de poser des questions à n'importe qui a parlé aujourd'hui. On va faire une question, un suivi chacun. Donc, avec ça, je vais céder le parole à l'opérateur. Operator, over to you.
Thank you. Merci. Please press star 1 at this time to ask a question. Veuillez s'il vous plaît appuyer sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. And the first question is from Mia Robson from the Canadian Press. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning, Mr. O'Regan. I'm wondering, in the last election, the federal government promised interest-free loans of up to $40,000 for home energy retrofits. A $5,000 grant seems a lot smaller. I'm wondering if you could explain to me why we're getting this instead of what was promised in the last election.
Well, I think we're going to come out with a more, fulsome announcement on greener homes in the very soon, extremely soon. So I think perhaps at that point, I'll entertain the question. But to get into further detail about the program, I'd be scooping myself, which I don't want to do.
Okay, and I'm also wondering if you can give us an update on what's happening with Line 5 and negotiations or efforts to keep that pipeline open.
Well, the parties are in mediation, State of Michigan and Enbridge, as you know. They have another scheduled meeting tomorrow being the 18th. And we continue to believe very strongly in the process of mediation, and, this is court appointed. So they're at the table, things are moving along, and we are confident that a local solution in the Michigan Western District Court will be the most permanent solution.
All right, thank you, Mia. Operator, next question, please.
Thank you. The next question is from Kevin Gallagher from CTV National News. Please go ahead.
Good morning. My question is for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. I'd like to know, when did you find out about the allegation against Major-General Dany Fortin, and who informed you?
Kevin, I'll jump in here. Just Ian Cameron once again. The Prime Minister actually had a scheduling conflict for this portion of the announcement. I know that he will have other media availabilities, and I direct you to his office for that. But if you would like to ask that question of either of the ministers here today, please do feel free to do so.
Well, it was for the Prime Minister, but if there is neither of the ministers who are at this press conference are involved with national defense.
That is correct. In that case, I'd be happy to point you to the Prime Minister's office for that question. I'm sure they'd be happy to either direct you to one of his media availabilities this week or answer your question for you. But obviously, you still have the floor here for a question and follow-up if you do have any other questions.
Well, who would I be to waste an opportunity to ask a question to the esteemed ministers? So, Minister O'Regan, what's the timeline in terms of the training for these, we're talking about close to 2,000 sort of new jobs. What's the timeline to get these folks trained up to become, energy efficiency experts?
Thanks for the question, Kevin. So right now, we didn't want to waste any time on getting the call out in advance of the announcement that we will be making on greener homes. So the call goes out today, obviously May 17th. It closes on July 8th. We're looking for governments, provincial, territorial, regional, municipal, Indigenous governments, organizations, profit, not-for-profit organizations who would be applying for this. Basically, they need to have knowledge of the EnerGuide rating system, including the role that energy advisors play, and also they have to have the governance structure and the staff and the networks to allow for successful completion of the program. So that's going out now. So you'll have those organizations. When people apply to become energy advisors, it depends on their qualifications. So if you have a carpenter, for instance, if you're somebody who has a trade, it might take them a week before they have to pass the EnerGuide exams. But if you're starting from scratch, it could be 5 to 6 weeks. So, with the 5 to 6 week timeline in mind, we thought we would get this out now. So by the time we get the Greener Homes Initiative, it can get off the ground even sooner. We start doing some good work later this year.
I'll ask a follow-up as well, and this could be for either Minister O'Regan or Minister Qualtrough. There's obviously a shortfall that's been addressed, and so why does this exist, and where does the framework of the $10 million to 2 million inspectors or advisors come from, and what type of qualifications do people need to have to become part of this program?
I can take it, and Carla might want to jump in, but again, it really depends on the level of qualification, Kevin. I mean, if they come in with a trade, if they come in with a carpentry trade, for instance, then a lot of the basics they may already know, and so we estimate most of them will probably only take about a week in order to pass the EnerGuide exams. If somebody is starting more from scratch, we're looking at 5 to 6 weeks. But that ramp up time isn't too significant, and so long as they're doing their homework and brushing up on their studies, we feel fairly confident that most people would be able to become an energy advisor, and that's why we also think it's a really great opportunity to attract a lot of talent. That were hit hard during the pandemic. We know that women and indigenous groups, as well as racialized persons, as well as persons with disabilities, as well as the LGBTQ plus communities, they were really hurt by this economic upheaval that we've been going through. So this is a really good opportunity to target those groups particularly and to get the best people.
And maybe I'll jump in. Thanks, Seamus. Thanks, Kevin. We've tried to provide different streams in this program to address the kind of flexibility Minister O'Regan was talking about. So there's a stream that actually involves in enhancing training materials at their core and even giving opportunities for potential candidates to access this training. There's also a mentorship stream for people who maybe, as Seamus said, are a little further along, but we would like people to have this on-the-job training. There's a recruitment piece, obviously, to go out there and tell Canadians about this awesome opportunities and recruit from these traditionally underrepresented groups. And then there's an upskilling and professional development component, which, if you're starting with a certain set of qualifications, we're looking to help people get better trained, more skills that are particularly related to this particular field. But the idea that we're very soon going to have 700,000 homes to be assessed and to be given these grants to means that we better make sure we have people in order to do these audits. And, from my perspective, a Minister of Workforce Development, this is just the beginning.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Operator, next question.
Thank you. The next question is from Mike Lecouteur from Global News. Please go ahead.
Ministers, thanks for taking our questions. And just as a note, it would have been helpful if we could have been informed that the Prime Minister was not going to be on around for the question and answer period. Given that, though, as Kevin said, I'm not going to waste an opportunity to ask ministers the kind of questions. So this goes to Minister O'Regan. I know you said you're confident that a local solution can be found for Line 5, but what are you doing, and members of the government, to appeal to the governor of Michigan to try and use the political arguments to change her mind on Line 5?
We've been continuously making the political argument. In fact, later today, I'll be meeting with Senator Joe Manchin, Democratic senator, to continue to make sure that decision makers in Washington too understand completely Canada's case here and what Line 5 means to Canada's energy security. This is in the long line of people that we have spoken to, both within the administration and on Capitol Hill. We have taken our cues on this from the ambassador, who knows the ground very well. And she and I have been working very much in tandem. I've also been speaking on the provincial side with James Rashad and Sonia Savage just over the weekend. We continue to make sure that our government, the Alberta government, the Canadian government, are continuing to remain aligned on this. I point to, in terms of provincial participation in this, we had a joint op-ed that went out in several newspapers last week over the weekend, signed by Ontario Minister Greg Rickford, as well as Energy Minister Bronwyn Eyre in Saskatchewan, and of course Alberta's Minister Sonia Savage. It's not too often that all our levels of government, particularly those governments, are writing op-eds together in a common position. But that is what we're doing to make sure that we are heard loud and clear.
And just as a follow-up to both ministers, I wanted to know what your reaction was of hearing of the news of allegations against Major-General Dany Fortin, who is the head of arguably the most important file facing this government, and that he decided to step aside amid these allegations of sexual misconduct.
I'll begin, and just to say, obviously ongoing investigation, so you can't say a whole lot, but, I will say that we remain committed to building and respect, and we have to stay, and we do remain focused on the vaccine rollout. Millions of vaccines, of course, arriving every week, and the Canadian Armed Forces will continue to fully support the vaccine rollout as well as the government's response to COVID-19 right across Canada.
Okay, thank you very much. Operator, next question, please.
Thank you. The next question is from David Thurton from CBC News. Please go ahead.
Hi, Ministers. What's the impact of losing Major General Dany Fortin? What impact can you say this will have or won't have on the rollout of vaccines?
Seamus, let me jump in on this one. I've been sitting on the Cabinet COVID committee since the very beginning, and I can assure Canadians that it won't have any impact in terms of the operational capacity of the CAF to deliver. CAF members are experts in logistics and operations, and when someone steps aside, there's been people waiting and training in order to move forward and keep the mission going, as we've heard regularly in our briefings. And so I have every confidence that Canadians will not feel any impact in terms of vaccine rollout. As Minister O'Regan said, we've had 20 million doses delivered to provinces as of last Friday. We've got another 50 million coming before the end of June, which is super exciting for Canadians. And, when it's your turn, please, everybody, get your shot.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Carla. The Canadian Armed Forces are extraordinarily good at organizing and laying out something like this. I have every confidence that they have the operations and the operational teams in place to make sure that this vaccine rollout is not affected.
Just as a follow-up, can any of you say how quickly Major General will be replaced, and whether or not it needs to be a member of the Canadian Armed Forces?
I guess what I can say is that, the mission is ongoing. I don't have the exact details of the individual that we will be replacing, either in the interim or permanently Major General Fortin. But as we both said, it's the mission is ongoing. We are keeping delivering. We are keeping the operation going logistically. How many times I can tell you I've been advised about the redundancies in place to make sure we can always pivot and we can always course correct no matter what's happening. So ultimately, at the end of the day, Canadians get the vaccines that we have to deliver to them.
Thank you, David. Operator, next question, please.
Thank you. The next question is from Christian Noël from Radio Canada. Please go ahead.
Bonjour, merci de prendre nos questions. Moi aussi, en français, j'aimerais vous poser une question concernant M. Fortin et son départ à la tête de l'opération vaccination. D'abord, j'aimerais avoir une meilleure idée de l'impact que ça pourrait avoir ou non le départ de M. Fortin.
Excuse-moi, je vais faire la réponse en français. Absolument, on ne va pas avoir un changement dans le livrage des vaccins avec le départ. Les forces armées ont toute la capacité logistique et opérationnelle de livrer pour les Canadiens. Alors, j'ai plus de détails que ça. Alors, moi et puis le ministre O'Regan n'ont pas sur l'investigation, mais je peux assurer les Canadiens que rien va changer. On va recevoir leurs vaccins et tout le monde peut en avoir un au minimum avant le fin juin.
Merci beaucoup, Minister Qualtrough. The next question I'll ask in English because maybe Minister O'Regan has something as well to add, but if you would like to try to answer in French as well, Minister Qualtrough, I would appreciate that. It's about the program you're announcing today, about energy advisors. I mean, there are already energy advisors in Canada. How many have that job now, and why do we need to train more?
We need to train more because I think very soon we will be announcing an ambitious Greener Homes initiative, and it is going to affect thousands of Canadians. And we know that energy advisors are going to be in demand. Recruiting up to 2,000 more of them right across the country is a very good investment for what's coming down the pipe on the Greener Homes announcement. And again, I don't want to scoop myself on it, but we'll be announcing that very soon. So it gives us the ability to have an increased capacity. All of these new recruits, these new energy advisors, will also have the benefit of the very latest from EnerGuide, very latest information, so that they can conduct the most up-to-date audits, and they'll be, they will be able to give the best advice on how Canadians can save money. I mean, the beauty thing about the energy efficiency file is that, and I became a convert when I attended an International Energy Agency meeting, and they announced that energy efficiency was the hidden fuel. It could get us, anywhere from, depending on your commitment to your Paris Accord, that depending on the country, could get you anywhere from a third to a quarter of your way to meet your Paris commitments, and that's through energy efficiency. So it has the benefit too of saving people money. And it also has the benefit of being very local. If you're a homeowner in a rural community, well, somebody has to come over in your community to fix your windows. So it's not something that happens in another town or another place or only in big cities in this country. And I'm from a small town in Labrador, so I'm keenly aware of this. This is something that is going to create jobs as people renovate their homes, and it will create jobs where they live, no matter where they live.
Peut-être que je peux répondre en français. On va absolument augmenter la capacité dans cet emploi. On sait qu'il y aura 700 000 maisons qui peuvent bénéficier de la bourse pour rendre plus vert la maison. Et puis, comme Ministre O'Regan a dit, il va être d'autres annonces très proches. Mais nous ne voulons pas vous dire plus de détails à ce moment-là. Mais franchement, c'est un secteur qui agrandit. Et nous devons avoir la capacité dans les entraîneurs pour aider les Canadiens à rendre plus vert leur maison. Et peut-être que Corey peut nous dire comment c'est très important d'avoir la capacité dans ce domaine. Et c'est ce que ce programme fait. Avant de On ne peut pas donner une bourse aux Canadiens et avoir personne à évaluer leur maison. Alors, c'est sûr que nous créons la capacité maintenant pour les prochaines étapes dans notre plan de rendre plus vert le Canada.
And just to add to that, currently there are only about a little over 800 energy advisors in Canada at the moment. So another 2,000 will almost triple, if not more, the number of energy advisors in this country.
Okay, merci pour les questions, Christian. Operator, next question, please.
Merci.
Thank you. The next question is from Janet Silver from iPolitics. Please go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for taking our questions. Minister O'Regan, President Biden will be in Michigan tomorrow, and Governor Gretchen Whitmer said in a panel discussion last Thursday that she will be meeting with him to push in terms of her case against Line 5. I know you said earlier that you would be talking to Senator Joe Manchin later today. What's your message to him and to others, and how do you counter her argument when she says this is a state jurisdictional issue?
Well, one of the things that we did in our brief of last week, our amicus brief, was make the very strong case that this, in fact, does belong in federal court where it is, because there is an international treaty that Line 5 is subject to, and that's the Pipeline Transit Treaty of 1977. So, that is the case that we have made strongly before the court. We have also noted that contained within that amicus brief is a dispute settlement mechanism. We have not pressed the trigger on that yet, but we have let it be known that we know how this document works. And so we laid our case for it. And I think, in speaking with senators, as I often, and other important members in Washington, D.C., when we make our arguments, of course, it's based on the facts. And, the fact of the matter is, pipelines are an essential part of our national energy security, as the United States knows now. I mean, with most recently, of course, with what occurred with Colonial in the U.S. So, and then when we look at the alternatives to Line 5, in terms of getting molecules from point A to point B, it is between the number of trucks that we will need, in terms of the shipping that will be required, or the increase in rail cars that we will need. It's a lot to substitute for Line 5. So the alternatives are messy, they are more expensive, they are more polluting, and they are less safe than the pipeline of Line 5, which again has been in operation for over 60 years. So those are the arguments that we make strongly.
I'm glad you brought up about the substitute in terms of railway, that and trucking to ship. I'm wondering whether or not the government has entered into discussions with Enbridge in terms of, if the federal courts don't side in the favor of Enbridge and the government and those that have intervened in this case, what the backup plan, and if you're working with Enbridge to figure out plans in terms of shipping, transporting that oil and gas to Ontario.
Yeah, I mean, Enbridge has contracts. It seeks to honor those contracts. We know that the ramp-up time may take a couple of months, but ultimately, what it would mean is thousands of 18-wheelers on the 401 and the 403 around Toronto. It would mean finding alternatives for Pearson. But on the flip side, the thing is, it would also mean finding alternatives for the state of Michigan. And for neighboring states like Pennsylvania and Ohio, and the refineries there, but more than just the refineries, the hundreds of thousands of homes that the propane from Line 5 heats in Michigan. When you saw that recent bad weather freeze in Texas and neighboring states, Michigan was spared that because it was able to get its propane for home heating through Line 5 uninterrupted. So it's important not just on the Canadian side, it's important on the American side as well.
Thank you, Janet. Operator, next question, please.
Thank you. The next question is from Natasha Belowski from Canada's National Observer. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for taking our questions. I was just wondering, in regards to the home retrofit funding and grants that are available, home renovations that significantly increase energy efficiency tend to be really pricey. For example, redoing wall insulation varies but can often cost well upwards of $40,000, which already exceeds the maximum interest-free loan potential that was outlined in the budget. Lots of organizations are advocating for large-scale residential tower retrofits because that would lead to more significant energy reductions in comparison to the Greener Homes program. And many of these towers were constructed in the 70s or 80s and are in need of renovation anyways. So I'm wondering, why were home retrofit grants for $5,000 and the interest-free loans of up to $40,000 prioritized over a larger-scale residential tower retrofit program that would be more effective at reducing our GHG emissions and also create more jobs due to the scale of these projects? Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha, for the question. I would say, watch this space. I mean, certainly what the argument that you present about larger buildings and towers, I think, is a very good one. We are beginning with homes right now, and we're going to be formally launching the full program very soon. But, you are talking up to 700,000 homes. So the cumulative nature of that, spells out significant savings. And we're talking about up to $5,000 per household. And just as a reminder for those who are listening, that's retroactive to December 1st, 2020. So save your receipts, hang on to the receipts. But the accumulation, I think, of that number of homes will get us a good ways there. But by no means is this the end. This is the start of this phase, I think, of the program.
And on that, in that same vein, the $4.4 billion investment over 5 years, I believe it's estimated that over 200,000 households could take advantage of that over those 5 years. But the Pembina Institute calculated that about 600,000 dwellings would need to be retrofitted every year from now until 2040 to get all of our existing housing up to date and energy efficient by that time. And I'm wondering if there are plans to vamp up that 200,000 households, because over 5 years, of course, that sets us quite far back in terms of trying to achieve, that net zero home energy efficiency goal.
Well, I think one of the reasons, just to get back, go ahead. Sorry, did I hear something? Okay. One of the reasons I think we also began with homes is because homeowners really want to be able to do their part. So we focused on that in the outset. I mean, we had heard that, members of Parliament heard that from constituents wondering what they could do. People are interested in retrofitting their own homes. This is a good place and a good opportunity because there's a lot of retrofitting going on during this pandemic. This is a good opportunity to kind of way down that scale and make sure that more things are done. When we look at larger pieces, the buildings that you're talking about, I know that the Federation of Canadian Municipalities is very keen on this, and they're working in this space. So is Infrastructure Canada. A lot of work is being done under Infrastructure Canada here. I'm concentrating on homes now. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done in the larger space on buildings, and I can tell you the government and the private sector are focused on that. We will have more details coming out on loans in that area coming out in the summer. The scale of the challenge is, no question, it is very large, and we will need all hands on deck, but this is a very good starting point, I think.
Thank you, Natasha. Operator, next and final question, please.
Thank you. The last question is from Isaac Pawnay from the Charlton. Please go ahead.
Hi. So this question is for Minister Qualtrough. For this initiative that you guys have announced, you've mentioned that there will be a focus on hiring underrepresented and marginalized groups. How specifically will you ensure that this initiative is implemented?
Well, thanks, Isaac, for the really important question. We've actually designed the call for proposals in such a way that proposals will be evaluated and given more weight if they have a specific target population or if they demonstrate a focus on a particular population. And then when we compare proposals and when we look at how the objectives of the program are being met, we will allocate a weight to the proposals that focus on, as you said, the underrepresented groups that we're trying to target and give work opportunities to specifically through this program. It's really important, and that's why we baked inclusion and diversity right into this from the beginning.
Thank you very much.
And do you have a follow-up? I will take that.
Sorry, no.
Yeah, go ahead. You don't have a follow-up. Okay. Well, thank you very much for calling in. That is it for the questions and answers. So back to you, Cindy.
Thank you, Ian. Well, this is certainly a big announcement that can impact Canadians on so many levels. The Prime Minister, Minister O'Regan, Minister Qualtrough, and Corey Diamond have certainly given us a lot to think about today. So thank you. And so this concludes today's virtual event. And I want to thank everybody who participated.
Thanks.
Okay, goodbye.
Thanks, Cindy. Bye,
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you.
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.